Oh, WWE programming in 2016, what were you like? You were not very good, is what you were like. Raw and SmackDown basically were just blending together, at least until the brand split happened for the second time. And at least the brand split for a little bit in the fall and winter and even into the spring and summer of 2017. Ended up actually being pretty good until they made Jinder Mahal the WWE champion. But more on that perhaps at another date, even though I ranted about that plenty as it happened. But back in 2016, it was all about making Roman look strong. That was a recurring theme, trending topic, and a meme at that point among many wrestling fans, at least on the internet, the IWC as they were, and still are. And I will say that Roman at least was trying to do well, but he was being rejected because of how he was being presented. But it would still make Roman look strong, hence why he was defending the WWE Championship in the 30-man Royal Rumble. One versus all. Not necessarily, no matter how they tried to make that a thing, it wasn't going to happen. But 2016 did see the arrival in WWE of AJ Styles at this event. And a couple months later, his Wrestle Kingdom 10 opponent, Shinsuke Nakamura. They were getting people back from injury. And then Daniel Bryan had to retire due to injury, at least for 2 years. And they were doing some pretty good stuff. They were elevating some of the women. The IC title was being elevated about as high as it would ever be elevated again. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Vince McMahon started to hate that goddamn title. He decided to shit all over it. Probably could have reworded that, but nevertheless, wouldn't be the first time he shit all over something, the dirty pervert that he is. But the thing is WWE programming, from the television to the pay-per-views, or what is now known as the premium live events, they were in a state of flux. The network was being pushed, and we were on the road to WrestleMania 32, and boy oh boy, everything was muddy. Really goddamn muddy. I'm John Renton with a retro review of WWE Royal Rumble 2016. This qualifies for retro review status. This is just over 10 years old. That is ridiculous. I'm going to talk about the WWE Championship picture briefly, not in like granular detail, but I'm going to kind of catch us up to speed as to what happened that led to the WWE Championship picture being muddy even through 2016, but I'll just talk about it at least up to WrestleMania 32. So if we go back to when Cena and Orton were having their unification thing, I was at the Slammy Awards, by the way, where Punk did the thing where he was laughing about Triple H being one of the greatest. He was right, still is. But then, Orton was the champion. And then that would lead to Cena versus Bray at WrestleMania 30. Bray should have won that. But then we also got Orton against Orton versus Batista versus Daniel Bryan. And the fans basically forced, Vince and others to push Daniel Bryan. So Vince decided he's going to take away the streak. Ha, 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 ha. God, in hindsight, Mark Calloway deserved to suffer that for how much of a prick he turned out to be. But as far as the streak, just for a character, from a character perspective, yeah, it shouldn't have gone to Brock because Brock didn't need it. But we then see Daniel Bryan win the title on that night, celebrate with Conor the Crusher. That poor kid, that kid didn't deserve to suffer that. If only that kid was still here. And fuck the people that were heckling his dad at the goddamn Hall of Fame. So nevertheless, Daniel Bryan would only defend the championship like once against Kane, would have to relinquish it, and then would be in another state of flux. Cena would become the champion at Money in the Bank, and then would end up losing it to Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2014, Suplex City, bitch, and then he would defend it again, a more competitive match at Night of Champions, take some time off, defend it again in a terrific three-way against Rollins and Cena at the 2015 Rumble. He would lose it again at WrestleMania 31, the show of shows, the spectacle as it were, when Seth Rollins cashed in that match between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, the heist of the century. And then Rollins would actually have a pretty good run as champion. And boy, the thing that still scares me about Rollins during this time is he was trying to get something out of the cage, and then that spike nearly impaled him. Oh God, the spike for the cage to lock it down nearly impaled him. God, that's scary. God, I'm trying to remember what event that was. Nevertheless, Seth defended the championship, became a double champion for a little bit at SummerSlam, stopping Cena's U.S. Open Challenge, would lose the U.S. title back to Cena at Night of Champions. Cena would then lose it to Alberto Del Rio, returning Alberto Del Rio Seth would hold on to the WWE Championship, accidentally retiring Sting without intending to, and then would end up basically on a European tour. I believe he was facing Kane, and then his knee went in a way that nature never intended. And unfortunately, his knee was totally fucked. Like, it went in a way that even made Kerry Von Erich cringe. Or at least Kerry Von Erich would have if Kerry Von Erich was still alive. But he's not, because reasons. So, that being said, yeah, so Seth's title was relinquished. And now it was a tournament. Man, I remember when they decided to just make the League of Nations a thing, and they tried to elevate Sheamus out of goddamn nowhere, and then Roman had to fight out the League of Nations. And for a brief moment, they cheered, and then they realized they got Roman as champion. They didn't want that, so that's pretty much where we're at right here. So between Survivor Series 2015 and I believe TLC 2015, where Ambrose and Owens were competing over the IC title and other things were occurring, including the aftermath of Paige saying to Charlotte, your little baby brother didn't have much fight left in him, did he? Yes, that was something that actually happened on television. That was 2015, right? I think it was fall of 2015. It wasn't all that it would have had to have been, because Paige was pretty much out as far as like being an active competitor for a little bit, until coming back in late 2017 and then having her neck injured. Again, nevertheless, the WWE Championship picture at this point was basically bing, boom, 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 boom. We're just, putting all this stuff around here. It's not going all that great, and Roman is the champion. Fans don't want the champion to be Roman. To be fair, Roman was getting some cheers, but the boos were outweighing that, and they needed to find a way to heat Roman up. Turning him heel might have worked, but they weren't willing to fucking do that. And that's basically what leads us to the 2016 Royal Rumble. So, yeah, despite the fact that they were in the Amway Center in Orlando, around 15,000 people, the fans were pretty lively at first, and the fans actually were pretty active during the Rumble. And they had 91,000 pay-per-view buys, despite the fact that they were really pushing for the network, the $9.99 price. And that's actually still some pretty good money for the WWE at this point. And again, Operation Make Roman Look Strong. By the way, the pre-show was a four-way where the winning two people would end up, it was a four-way tag where the winning two people would end up in the Royal Rumble. And I'm going to tell you why this is hilarious later on. Jack Swagger and Mark Henry against the Ascension, against Damian Sandow and Darren Young, against the Dudleys. And Jack Swagger and Mark Henry won. By the way, their combined run in the Rumble, I think, was a minute between both of them. So, we have dirty pervert Vince McMahon, who God knows what he was doing before he took that limo ride. And Stephanie McMahon, remember when she compared the 9/11 attacks to what her family went through with the steroid trial? I didn't forget. I'm not going to forget. She knew better. She's going to be shamed for it. She's not a creative mind. She didn't invent women's wrestling. And she's just as much of a bitch and an evil person as her dad. But TKO doesn't want you to think that. So, the Roman Coliseum thing. Good Lord. That was just, not good. It's one versus all. Also, Vince got lost during his pitch, talking about the Rumble. So, good job there. Old man Vince, old, dirty pervert Vince. Not that young, dirty pervert Vince was great, but all those stories about Vince turned out to be true. So, let's talk about the main card here. We have Dean Moxbros, yes, Dean Ambrose, the lunatic fridge, as the Durbinator once did. Thank you very much, Chris, for that. That was one of your best photo shots. It was silly, but it was great. Against Kevin Owens, last man standing match for the IC title. Pretty much the match of the show until the Rumble. Let me make it clear also, this event is not good. It's not good at all, and I'm just going to be making observations and adding a few little details. But Dean was doing pretty well for himself here. He would get a WWE Championship shot against Triple H at Roadblock. End of the line. That was just a running gag because it would always pause too long, so why not? And commentary was from Michael Cole, JBL, and Byron Saxton. Now I'm remembering why I hated 2016 WWE. JBL, by the way, was a good commentator for a bit. And I don't mind heel commentators, but he was trying to channel Jesse Ventura. Despite the fact Jesse Ventura had the gift of gab, JBL was at times decent, and then otherwise just got to the point where he was just a fucking idiot. Michael Cole has always been a fucking idiot. I don't care if Vince is yelling in his ear or not. And Byron Saxton, basically this match starts off with a fist fight, a hockey fight. The crowd was already hot for all this. And Cole got knocked down by Kevin Owens, hit him harder. I don't care if Michael Cole's a good guy or not. He should not still be doing commentary in 2026. He should have been doing commentary in 2016 because he's just not fucking good. And then we got a barricade cannonball to a pop. The crowd was chanting, holy shit. Remember when barricade bumps were done occasionally and they meant something? Yeah, that actually got a really good reaction. Now, yeah, some people pop in, they're like, oh, because they've seen it. So, broken kendo stick, a chair pile, a backdrop, because Kevin Owens is bound determined to not walk by the age of 50. I don't know if he's going to come back from his neck injury, by the way. If he does come back, it's not going to be until after this WrestleMania. That's unfortunate. And I don't think he's going to be at next year's WrestleMania because that's in Saudi Arabia, and I don't think Kevin Owens is going to compete there. I don't know. But we got steps, being used. We got some tables brought out, a double stack that'll factor into the finish. And instead of the pair of dimes shift or the Death Rider, remember when they called the DDT Dirty Deeds? Yeah, that was pretty stupid. So anyway, onto a chair. That was, that's fun because who needs a working head? And a driver through the table. That like twisting brain fisherman buster thing that Owens does. The crowd pops. He says stay down, hits a pop-up powerbomb. And then Owens goes through two tables after getting horse-collared by a chair. And Dean ends up winning because the referee counts 10 and Owens can't get back up. That's how you win a last man standing match, by the way. And there we go. That was pretty much the highlight of any non-Rumble part here. And by the way, again, the Rumble match not necessarily good. In fact, this event largely wasn't that good. Had it not been on the network, I don't think I would have spent money for this. But then they do plugs for all the WWE Network shows. Remember Camp WWE? A lot of those network shows just weren't that good. Jericho, by the way, broke Xavier's trombone. And then Big E does his big intro. I miss Big E being part of the New Day. I just miss Big E in general, but he seems happy and enjoying life and everything. It's unfortunate that his career got ended. I'm not blaming the former Ridge Holland, Luke Menzies. I mean, if he acted like he was on his Menzies, if you get it, you get it. But I do miss Big E. And we got a trombone salute. And Xavier brought out the trombone. Remember when the Usos had that weird tribal intro? I forgot they were still doing that in 2016, but there we are. So the New Day and Usos, one of their many, 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 many tag team championship matches. This took place. Man, Eden Styles as the ring announcer. I wonder whatever happened to her. I mean, I wonder if she ever realized it was open mic night, bitch. Not their best match, by the way, but it was fine. Big E doing that dive, that missile dive where he does. It's like, I'm amazed that he actually didn't suffer further, like earlier injuries doing that shit. But they still did well. We then got a lot of boos for the Usos when it looked like they were going to win. And a big ending won it. So it's not a bad match. It's just a standard TV match. But it's a standard TV match was given maybe a little more time. Even though Raw was 3 hours at this point. And then we see recaps of the League of Nations, which was Sheamus, Rusev, Alberto Del Rio, and Wade Barrett before he left and went elsewhere for a little bit. So, yeah, they beat up Roman. Then the Wyatts showed up, and then the Wyatts beat up Roman. This was on Raw. And then the Wyatts do some pre-tapes. Braun was never a good talker. Bless Rowan, neither was he. Luke Harper should have been elevated a lot higher than he was. And Bray, it's very unfortunate that Luke and Bray are no longer here. It's very unfortunate. That much I'll say. And I mean, I think everybody pretty much could agree, even if you weren't big fans of them, I think you could pretty much agree with that. So we get Mr. Lucha, do a good Lucha thing. I can't imagine why Kalisto blocked me or blocked my best friend for the do a good Lucha thing Disney meme thing that he did, which is so fucking tremendous. So yeah, Kalisto going for the U.S. title against Alberto Del Rio. Now, Kalisto had won the championship and then lost it back to Del Rio a little bit earlier, or a little bit before this. Remember when they tried to make Kalisto a thing? And I'm not saying that Kalisto was bad. He was fairly good in the ring, but he was very much a tag team guy. Trying to make him a singles guy wasn't going to work. And the match was all right. I mean, JBL making jokes about Kalisto's height. The nerve of making short jokes. Who would ever do that? And even if they have no reason to live. And a stomp misses, and he hits the outside DDT, Kalisto does, but foot on the ropes. Oh, no. And then there's an exposed buckle spot, another outside DDT. Salito del Sol, I think is what they called it. And 1, 2, 3. So Kalisto wins the U.S. title, and then we actually go on to defend it against Ryback at WrestleMania 32 on the pre-show. You know, that show that I literally think WrestleMania 32 lasted into the summer. I will retro-view WrestleMania 32, by the way. In lieu of doing a lot of other retro content, I will at least find a way to get to that around March. Late March, early April. So then we have the kickoff panel recap, or kickoff panel people recap the four-way. Renee, Booker, Lawler, and Graves. My God, what a murderer's row of bullshit that is. Corey Graves, who was lucky that he ever got a commentary job. Lawler, who was never the same after his near cardiac incident. And Booker T, who literally sounded like a stroke victim. He sounds like he's having several strokes every time he talks. And Renee. So anyway, Stephanie McMahon, by the way, because Vacour was nowhere near WWE or near wrestling. Was she wrestling at this point? Like, I'm asking genuinely. When did Stephanie Vacour debut? Like, in wrestling in general. So anyway, Stephanie McMahon and Paul Heyman. I mean, you want to talk about two of the biggest egos and two of the biggest charlatan carnies in wrestling. And don't get me wrong, Heyman's a creative genius. He just isn't a good businessman, and he misused so many of the talents in ECW and led them to financial ruin because he's a piece of shit. And I'll never forgive him for that. So anyway, Charlotte, along with Ric Flair, took on Becky Lynch. This is when Becky was doing the steampunk thing. It's for the Divas Championship. And I'm sorry, I know that there are fans of the Divas era, and I'm not knocking some of the talents. There are some talents that got underutilized, and then there are those that just were never that fucking good. The Bellas were never that fucking good, and I know Nikki has been through a whole lot of personal issues in just the last couple of years. I'm not knocking her as a person. Brie couldn't do anything to save her life in the ring, but them and various others in the Divas era. There were some that could, that were never allowed to do that much. But that Divas title always looked terrible. It looked like a little Cracker Jack toy. It made the women seem like they were competing over a little toy, which is not what you want out of athletes. And they were making some women, actually mean something. The thing is that even by this point, this is 2016, Paige didn't even mean that much. Paige wasn't even on this show. This is also a couple years before they did the first ever Women's Royal Rumble, where they had the Bellas in it. So anyway, the whole point is that WWE was in a state of flux with their women's division here. Rick had to have either been drunk or something, because at one point, and I don't care if, this was part of Rick's shtick, it might have worked in the 80s, maybe the mid-90s. He forces himself on Becky to the point where the crowd, or Netflix, by the way, actually edited it out, and the crowd reacted. And I remember there being quite a bit of controversy around at the time. Now, I don't know how okay Becky was with it. I don't even know how okay Charlotte was with it. But it was stupid to begin with. Rick being associated with Charlotte made sense as far as the father-daughter dynamic, but it wasn't any fucking good. Because Rick was going to overshadow Charlotte. This is when Charlotte actually tried, by the way. And did that leg vice stuff that she can do. She can work. I just don't find her interesting, and she is no more improved character-wise in 10 years than she, was here. So, Rick then interferes by hurling his jacket, or Becky's jacket, whatever it was. And the women were having a decent match here. It wasn't the best. It better stuff in NXT, but it was better stuff. And I know NXT is a WWE brand. That's one biggest misconception about it. Yeah, they're allowed to go a little more out there and everything. It's still a WWE brand. But the thing is that Becky lost via spear, which, okay, you're keeping the title on Charlotte. I understand. You're trying to do heel stuff. Okay, Rick still wasn't able to do enough to elevate his daughter because this is when Rick was in an on-again, off-again relationship with WWE. And then here's Sasha. It's kind of wild just to see how the years have elevated some aspects of Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Moné, and the years have also exposed some of the problems that exist in Sasha. Mainly the fact that as good as she is in the ring, she needs to be produced, because if she's allowed to basically do her own thing, then we see what happens. And it's not very good. But she confronts Charlotte, she ends up beating up Becky, and ends up backstabbing Charlotte. This would lead to a three-way. There was the match that stole the show at WrestleMania 32, but it was petty theft. And then WrestleMania 32 is 70 days away. Welcome to my house. I believe that was Heavy Flow Rider that did that. And Royal Rumble by the numbers by Byron Saxton. Lillian goes over the rules for the 30-man Rumble match, and here it is. For the WWE World Heavyweight Championship of the Universal World, Roman, the defending champion, and Roman Reigns is number 1. And I am going to mention all the entries. I'm going to say, however, that this is one of those Rumbles that in ebbs and flows and in clips is fine. But witnessing this whole thing play out, not very good. Just not very good. So, again, observations. And that's really about all you're going to get here. Rusev, Machka, and he is gone. Lana wasn't even able to get to the ring. Probably just as well because she never belonged in the ring. But Rusev was gone instantly. And then they use the Kevin Dunn camera stuff of focusing on Roman while AJ's music hits. And the crowd was wondering, and then when the screen said, "I am phenomenal," the crowd lost their mind. AJ Styles is there with his longer hair that always looked weird to me. Still does. The crowd went insane. Makes sense. AJ had worked in Orlando quite a bit in TNA. And also people knew who AJ Styles was. I mean, it wasn't just Orlando. It wasn't just lapsed TNA fans. It wasn't just New Japan fans. It was wrestling fans in general that were popping for this stuff. And they were popping for AJ Styles. And that was great. They were already booing Roman heavily. Anytime Roman even sniffed the top rope, even every time it looked like he was going to get near it, anytime it looked like he was starting to go over it, they were starting to cheer. They did not want this man to be champion. And number 4 was Tyler Breeze. And then number 5 was Curtis Axel. It was a social outcast. That was Curtis Axel, Heath Slater, Bo Dallas, and Adam Rose. Leon Kruger. He didn't last very long. You know why he didn't last very long? Look up what led to his release. Yeah. So anyway, Curtis Axel didn't get eliminated in 2015 Rumble. He never entered the Rumble either. So there we go. Number 6 was Jericho. He ended up lasting about 51 minutes, something like that. Number 7 was Kane, out of the corporate stuff and back in the mask and everything. Number 8 was Goldust, in gold and blackface. More blackface than anything. Ironic for a guy that voted for a piece of shit that wants to, end the trans existence and happens to have a trans child and everything. So yeah, Dustin Rhodes is a piece of shit. Now I don't care who knows it. Goldust, influential gimmick. So number 9, Ryback. Speaking of, I'm sorry, but this guy was over for a brief moment in time. He was. But he also way overestimated his worth, thinking that he was worth more than $500,000 over I think it was like a $1.5 million deal for 3 years. Now, yeah, after taxes and travel and that kind of stuff, even if you get reimbursed for some of it, it can be a little costly. Maybe you need to find a better supplier, allegedly, Ryback, because good goddamn Christ. Ryback would be out of the company by, I think, the summer. And Kofi was at number 10. He would do a cool little false elimination a little bit later. Number 11 was Titus, the soon-to-be suspended Titus. Because remember, I was at the Daniel Bryan retirement, and remember seeing footage a little bit later. Because where we were, we saw enough of the stage. But anyway, Titus wanted Stephanie to go by ladies first, and Vince got upset because he grabbed his arm. You're one of them. Why are you grabbing my arm? I bet you the Vince thought that. Because look how he booked Tony Atlas and Saba Simba and various other people. I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility. Titus threw a few people around. Number 12 is Truth, who gets a ladder and doesn't understand where the title went. And then he gets tossed out. Kofi then lands on the shoulders of Big E. And Big E shows his strength by holding Kofi, yes, who is on the smaller side, but still is a full-grown man on the shoulders of a man the size of Big E. It's still impressive strength by Big E, who didn't even look like he was breathing hard. So, Kofi got back in the ring. He did get eliminated a little bit later. 13 was Luke Harper. And then this is where things went to bullshit, by the way. AJ Styles, I think, got credited with maybe 1-2 eliminations, if that. The League of Nations come out and attack Roman. Rusev splashes them through a goddamn announcer's table. During this, Stardust comes out. I wonder whatever happened to Stardust. Co-journer of truth, as it were. And he's gonna, Roman's being taken to the back, but he won't go on the stretcher. He wants to go back under his own power. So, stretcher damn near killed her. Number 15 is the Big Show. And he eliminates a few. Big Show at this point, though, was washed. And I mean, bless him. He's still going. He seems healthy. He doesn't need to wrestle anymore. The last time he did wrestle, Powerhouse Hobbs slammed him on the hood of a car, and we didn't see him after that for a while. Number 16 was Neville. Man, the man that gravity forgot, and the man who quit because of Enzo. Relatable. So, number 17 is Braun, who eliminates Kane and then the Big Show. Remember when they had Braun do that weird choke thing? He was like, he's like doing it. Yeah, it wasn't very good. They had to keep it elementary, because let's be honest, Braun was never that good. Braun got over by the I'm not finished with you thing. But there you are. Number 18 is Kevin Owens, who is dragging his leg out like he's Kerry Von Erich, or if he was dragging his shoulder, it'd be like Mike Von Erich. I'll make any Von Erich jokes, because I don't care. And he knocks Styles down, welcome to WWE, and eliminates him. And it was cool that they got that little interaction there. And then they would have a feud over the U.S. Championship that led to a pseudo-title change, or the title change that wasn't supposed to happen. And there we go. Number 19 is Dean Moxbros. And then number 20, back from double shoulder injury, or at least he threw out one shoulder. I'm trying to remember what he did. Sami Zayn made his return. And Kevin Owens is supposed to be he's all angry, but he's happy that his buddy's there. And that was cool. So at least we got that interaction. Number 21 is Roman, or Rowan rather. And then, so, we're just getting this going. We're getting like 3 of the Wyatts in. It kind of makes sense. Number 22 is Mark Henry, and Mark Henry is gone within like 30 seconds. I don't even know if it's that much. And then number 23 is Bork, and Bork proceeds to take everybody out. Literally everybody. He F5s Jack Swagger right when Swagger gets in and eliminates him. To be fair, that We the People thing, boy, true to life gimmick right there for that fucking moron who believes, by the way, the stuff going on, the bullshit narrative that's going on in Minneapolis and everything. And if you support ICE, fuck you. I don't want you watching this stuff, and you don't deserve to be a productive member of society, because you're not, because you don't have a brain. But that being said, Jack Swagger doesn't have a brain. He has a hat, and he likes that hat. And Miz is out there. But then Miz joins commentary. To be fair, talking is what the Miz does best, because wrestling is never what the Miz did best. And 26 is Alberto Del Rio, who wrestled before, but of course we already know that. Number 27 is Bray, and by the way, a lot of the Wyatts are gone, but then the Wyatts are back in. And they attack Bork, and Bork ends up getting tossed. And that should have led, by the way, to Brock and Bray having a WrestleMania match, but no, we didn't get that. If I remember right, Bray, they had Rowan against Rock for an 8-second match, so Rock could have the fastest WrestleMania match in history. They had to have the bell ring, hit one move, and pop out because he tore a pectoral muscle, I believe, against John Cena at WrestleMania 29. And there we are. So number 28 is Dolph Ziggler. Now, Bray, by the way, was pretty over at this point, but they were not happy about Lesnar being tossed. So, Miz jumps in, and then he is beating up Ziggler, trying to toss him out. And then Roman attacks Sheamus during his entrance at number 29. Roman is back in the match to very little fanfare. They are not happy to see Roman Reigns. They do not want to see this motherfucker at all. So, we then just get, more boom, boom, boom. Miz is tossed. Various people are getting tossed. We have a few left. And then number 30 is Triple H. Because Triple H is just like, fine, I'll get another time in the spotlight because that's what my ego needs, is more time in the spotlight. Let's be perfectly honest. Triple H at his best could work with the top guy. But anytime he was the top guy, yes, he was a hated heel from 2000 to 2004, and the whole Reign of Terror thing that had moments, don't get me wrong, but had a lot of bullshit and was not necessarily great for anybody involved. I mean, he worked with a lot of his friends, Nash, Shawn Michaels. He worked with Shawn Michaels for what felt like the better part of 18 years. And basically, Jericho gets eliminated, Bray's gone, all this stuff. So then we are down to Triple H, Roman, and Dean. And then, Roman looks like he's going to do something. Roman gets tossed, and the crowd roars. That crowd, you could have brought out Adolf out there at that point and had him toss Roman, and it probably would have worked just as well. I mean, I'm serious. They wanted him to some wanted him to just fucking go away permanently, which I think is a little bit harsh. But believe that was definitely the prevalent thing. Making Roman look strong by getting eliminated, which makes sense. And then it was... and then Dean looked like he was going to win, become a double champion, but no, Triple H won. Stephanie celebrates like she has anything positive to contribute to pro wrestling. And Vince is there too, the lumpy-faced, dirty pervert that he is. And Triple H is the champion, and then would go to defend the title against Roman Reigns in a match that would have been considered a classic if you like long matches where nothing really happens. Speaking of which, WrestleMania 32 will pretty much be the next retro review. I'm not going to be doing Fastlane 2016. I just don't want to. Roadblock, no. I might maybe revisit TakeOver Dallas. I don't know. I may have already reviewed that. I actually genuinely don't remember if I did. I reviewed a lot of shit, guys. But sometimes it's fun to reflect on this stuff and fire in some comments. But yeah, looking back on this just over 10 years ago, it wasn't great. It really wasn't. 2016 was a rough year for WWE. Even with the positives, and there were always positives regardless of the year. 1995 with the occupational gimmick stuff. At least there were some positives there as far as Brett and Razor and Shawn. And Nash not wrestling Mabel was a positive. Too bad they had to have that to headline SummerSlam 1995. The whole point is, any year will have some positives, regardless of what company it is. Even WCW 2000. But, yeah, the 2016 Royal Rumble, not good. Not good. Not good at all. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritlin. And in closing, I will not be reviewing the 2026 Royal Rumble because I don't want to, because I'm working, and work's more important than watching a show I don't care about. So, yes, happy trails to you.